I want you to listen to something. It's a little out of tune, I understand, but listen to the top strings. What I hear is that the strings sound flat. They sound like a bass guitar or something. It's because these strings are really, really old. I have played for hundreds of hours on this set of strings. And that's generally the way I do. As a street performer, if you're going to go out and play, you're going to have to try to get as many miles out of something as possible. And so let me tell you how I've always approached it, and I need to change these strings. I want to share more music with you, but I just don't want to do it on this set of strings because for me, I can hear that those strings sound flat. And when I'm playing outside, they don't ring out nearly as well. And so there's a practical reason for that. I'll tell you a couple of things about the way that I've always had my strings as a professional musician. I've played on the stage since the early 80s, and during that time, and for many, many years, I was sort of known for having these unruly strings that were always sticking up. And I'll try to not take too long to do this. Let me see. I have no way to edit this. And so at the moment, it's just start stop. So you get what you get. And at the moment, let's just have fun with it. And I'll do my best to try to get us through this. So what I'm going to show you is the way that you can change your strings and the whole purpose behind it. But in the beginning, I would have my strings all sticking out like that. Because a lot of times in our area, in most areas, you're going to have people that come up on stage that want to sing with you. And sometimes they are rather inebriated, and so they're having a good time. And they can get a little close. But if you've got a little bit of a deterrent between you and them, it was always a good way to sort of get people to back up naturally because they were a little bit afraid of my strings. And so what I'm going to do is try to go ahead and take these off and change the strings and answer some questions about playing as a professional musician in Blacksburg. How you can get started, what you should think about, maybe reasons to think about looking at the Blacksburg sidewalk stage. When I first started playing, I had a very good friend. Here I sounds like a bass, boom, boom, boom. My very dear friend, Bud Bennett, who's an excellent musician, was also a work study of mine. I worked at Virginia Tech Library, and I was a supervisor, and he talked me into going to the farmhouse in Christiansburg. That is still in business, a beautiful place to eat, a beautiful place to go and play. And they were looking for musicians. And so we decided that we would go out, and I knew that he played an instrument. And an interesting thing enough is that he is a virtuoso banjo player. He was known in high school as Mr. Banjo. He was so sick of being Mr. Banjo by the time we met that during our entire three and a half years playing music, we never played with him playing the banjo. We always played two guitars, and this was in the early 80s. And so this story goes back to the early 80s. I'll share it with you that are from this area and know the way this goes down. But in general, this is what you could expect. We called and asked for an audition, and he had us come in on like a really slow Tuesday afternoon. And we had worked up about 2 or 3 songs that we were going to do. And we got up. There was only the manager, David, who came and sat down at a table where we were at. And we played the first song, and then suddenly he just sort of got up and he said, I don't have my book. And he left the room. And so Bud and I just looked at each other. And what I'm doing is I'm telling this story. I'm slowly turning these knobs. And the way that these strings are, make sure that you put your strings on so that when the string comes up, it's on the inside and comes around that way. And then you put the string in like that. If you put it on the outside, it goes in the wrong little slots here. So I'm not a technical person after all these years. So David came back and said, would you like to play? And we were thrilled. We were just ecstatic that we had our first music gig in the New River Valley. And so we went back and we worked on every song that we knew jointly between us. We knew a certain number of songs. And then we worked on new songs that we thought would be great. And so we were all excited. They had equipment there. And so fortunately for us, there was the house PA system. And now a house PA system is usually very subpar equipment, and it's usually pretty banged up. The wiring usually doesn't work. So there's a number of things to anticipate if you're going to use a house system. You need to really get there early, days early, and be able to go and purchase whatever you need to get the house system to work. But they had a house system. And so we went out for our first. Now, the way that it would work at the farmhouse at that time is that you were booked in for 2 nights in a row, Friday night and Saturday night. You started at 8 o'clock, got off at midnight. You played 4 45-minute sets. 4 45-minute sets. The way the farmhouse lounge worked is that people would come in, it would be really busy, as it always is. And so people would be waiting in the lounge for their tables to come open. When the table came open, and suddenly 6, 7 people would leave the room, and there would be an opening there for a while. And so the bar activity would come and go. But during a period of time, it would be really busy. So we got up and we played our heart out on our 45-minute set. And then we were pretty much done with the amount of material we had. So we had a 15-minute break. And we were really hoping that maybe the bar would turn over, like, the people that were there that had heard us in the beginning would have gone on in to eat, and there would be new people there. There weren't. There were just people stacked up. So once we restarted our sets, then it became apparent that was all the music we knew. So let me tell you more about the guitar, changing the strings here. So at this point, I have them pretty loose. And so some people would just cut them. I think that's really bad because it causes too much of a sudden relaxation on the neck of the guitar. So you don't want to do that. This is a really old guitar. So I've just had it for all my life, and so I'm real careful with it. The way these pegs are just pushed in. And so there is a tool that you can buy that will go underneath here and pop that out. I just use my finger, and I'm real careful, and I move it back and forth until I'm finally able to get the peg out. And it's sort of time consuming, but it's a little zen as far as taking the peg out. Also, the reason that I always had left the strings long is, as a musician, if you are out and you break a string and you're in the middle of a gig, you are sunk. You are just sunk if you do not have another string. It's like having a tooth missing or something. Every time you go to play that chord and that string is missing, everything just goes south from there. So you have to be able to recuperate on the street or on the fly or on the stage. You have to be able to stop for a minute and do something to recuperate. So I end up keeping a lot of strings that I've had through the time. And so this is sort of the most typical kind of break that happens. And so what happens is that you're playing along, and then suddenly, let me hold that right there, suddenly it snaps, and that part elongates out like that. So you can tighten that up, and that is a possibility that you could do that, but then generally it's right there where the nut of the bridge, or the nut is the part where the string goes over. So that's usually where it's broke. So if you have a lot on the end here, you can save yourself by refeeding this thing through. And you have to be real careful. If you rethread that through, each one of these has a round hole on it. You rethread this through and bring this all the way back down. Then you can save yourself. You can then real carefully, not to hurt your guitar, but you can put that back down in the hole, put the peg down on it. It will hold. You can tighten it back up. You can run for a long time on that. So if you're in the club or if you're on the side of the street and you're playing, you don't absolutely have to go if you have enough. So if you notice on this part of my string was pretty well straight. This is the bent part where it was around the tuning peg up here. And so I actually had that much left over. And so I just left that intentionally. Some people will cut it real close and they break the string, then they're done. So anyway, so going back to playing this Fateful Night, see that peg just come on out. Playing that Fateful Night at the farmhouse, after a while, the people sitting in the booth realized that we didn't know what we were doing and we were just playing songs. So they started sending up requests. And the one that stands out the most was, and Bud will verify this, was someone took a napkin and set it on fire. The farmhouse had candles on the table at the time. Burned a little hole in it and sent up for Baby Light My Fire, which didn't make sense at the time, but we didn't know it either. And so we realized right away how to play a lot of instrumental music. So that's part of the way that you can fill all this out, is that really work on your instrumental things, work on your chord progressions, interesting variations of it. So see, all of those came out. So at this point, what I'm going to do before I do anything else to put the strings back on, I'm still on the edge of time. And so this looks like it's going to be like a two-part video. And so this will be my first two-part video. I don't mean to take so long telling you all of this, but it will hopefully help you if you decide to go out and play a club or play a restaurant or something like that. This is sort of an idea of what to expect as far as what you'll see and how it'll go down and sort of how they will be and you will be. So I'm going to have to start the video because I'm going to run out of my time here. So thank you so much for coming and visiting, and I'm going to cut the video right back on. So I'll see you in a minute.